Welcome to Thank A Songwriter. Today we have the honor of interviewing multi-decade hit songwriter Tim Nichols. Tim has had multiple #1 radio singles, and he has won 23 BMI Most Performed Song Awards. Some of his hits include Live Like You Were Dying for Tim McGraw, She Had Me at Heads Carolina for Cole Swindell, and most recently, I Never Lie for Zach Top. In this episode, we'll discuss Tim's journey to Nashville, stories behind some of his biggest hits, and how he continues to innovate his career. All right, today our guest, Tim Nichols. Welcome.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Tim, tell us about, you were living in Springfield, Missouri.
Right.
Moved here to Nashville, but you have one of the best stories of, sometimes people talk about an underbelly of the music business, right, and somehow you ended up on 60 Minutes before your career even began. How did that happen?
It's a bit of a Forrest Gump story, I feel like, in that just the way negatives turned into positives. And so I had graduated high school in Springfield, Missouri. I loved country music. My dad was a huge country music fan. I had started singing in church, and I felt like this was something I was supposed to do. I wanted to be a country singer. And I knew, being a big country fan, that our friend, Bill Anderson, before he got in the music business, he was a broadcaster.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, heck, if it worked for Bill Anderson, maybe it could work for me. So I was going to major in broadcasting. First day of the semester, first major class, Introduction to Broadcasting, handful of people in the class. I walk in and the professor says, "I'm sorry, the class has been canceled due to lack of interest." Well, I finished that semester, and then my pursuit of higher education was canceled due to lack of interest. So I started just taking guitar lessons. And so this guitar teacher in Springfield told us about a record label that he had heard about in Nashville, Chart Records. I don't know how he heard about them, but that they were looking for artists. So my dad and I, we reach out to this guy and we set up an appointment, and I come down here to Nashville from Springfield, Missouri, come over here and audition for the guy. And what do you know? He thinks I have talent.
Of course he does.
Yeah, exactly.
Just happened to work out that way.
Right. So like, long story short, this guy is a total con artist, ripoff guy. And so my dad previously, when we were living in Virginia, had been a police officer. And so he knew when you have been ripped off, then you go to the Attorney General's office and basically file a complaint. And while we were sitting in the Attorney General's office right over here on James Robertson Parkway, an assistant attorney general walked out. He knew why we were here. And he said to my dad, "Mr. Nichols, there's an investigator from 60 Minutes on the phone, and they're looking at doing a story on this Nashville record ripoff thing. Would you like to speak with them?" Oh, I think we would.
Yeah.
Yes, we would like to speak with 60 Minutes.
Yes.
So the 60 Minutes producer called this guy posing as a wannabe artist. So my dad and I make another trip from Nashville. We walk in on this guy with Mike Wallace and the 60 Minutes cameras.
No
rolling.
way.
So from that, 60 Minutes did the episode in Springfield, Missouri, where I'm from. It's all over the news. Local boy ripped off on 60, watch Sunday on 60 Minutes. Tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
So from there, I met a guy named Cy Simon. Had an independent publishing company. Wayne Carson wrote for him, who is in the Nashville Songwriter Hall of Fame. He wrote The Letter. He wrote Always on My Mind. He was a great songwriter.
Yeah.
And so Cy Simon took me under his wing and started listening to all my crappy songs. And he was just a great mentor to me. And at one point I had gone to see him, and I was telling him how it didn't seem like musicians in Springfield weren't serious enough, and they didn't want it bad enough, and they just wanted to play on the weekends, and
Right.
they didn't, they had other jobs and they had families. And he said to me, and I've requoted it, I don't know how many times over the years, he said, "Tim, if you want to hunt tigers, you have to go where the tigers are."
Yeah.
Right? And so I moved to India. That's when I learned about a metaphor.
Right.
No, of course I didn't move to India, but that just resonated with me so much, in that I knew that I couldn't do
If you
what
wanna
I
write the hit
wanted to
songs,
do.
you gotta be where the hit songs are.
Exactly. That's right. And so I moved here to Nashville in 1980.
So when you moved here, was the big dream to chase that neon rainbow, to be a star up on stage? Or were you writing songs at that point because the big dream was writing songs? Or were you writing songs because you were just trying to get your foot in the door?
When I moved here, I had a little band and I'd been playing shows all across the country and whatnot, but I was writing songs.
Yeah.
I understood that could be a key to kind of getting through some doors, writing songs.
Yeah.
But I didn't move to Nashville thinking I was going to be a songwriter.
Right.
That's not what got me here. But then when I got here, and then you start meeting other songwriters and you start going to the Bluebird Cafe and the songwriting community, there is such a strong sense of community among songwriters here that I love. And I started going to the Bluebird and seeing the writers in the middle of that small little room, and they were funny and they had great stories, and then they could play these songs that would tear your heart out. And it's like, I want to figure out how to get in that circle.
I love that.
And so I started writing bad songs.
Let's talk about chasing that artist dream when you first came to town. So you and I have something in common, that we were both theme park performers.
That's right.
When did you get a job performing at Opryland, and what did you do there, and how did that lead to the next step?
So I moved to Nashville in 1980. Had this little band. For 3 years, we were traveling. We were playing shows all across the country. And then, keeping a band together is hard. Somebody's always quitting. The bass player, you got to fire
Unhappy.
somebody. Right. And so after 3 years, I decided I got to find a way to stay in Nashville. I could have stayed on the road from Missouri. About 1983, I suppose it was, there used to be a theme park here called Opryland, USA. And they asked me to basically MC a show in Branson, Missouri.
Was this Silver Dollar City?
That was Silver Dollar City is in Branson, Missouri. And so I knew all about Branson being from Springfield. And I thought, well, if I work for Opryland, if I do this satellite show in Branson in 83, then maybe I can get in the park at Opryland next year. And so that's what happened. So I worked then in 84, 85, and 86. I worked in these shows at Opryland. And so Opryland, they had like a strictly country show. I was never in the strictly country show, but I was in shows that had country sections in them.
Right.
And so one of the shows I was in, I think it was the first year, that was called Music, Music, Music. It was this big production show at the Roy Acuff Theater, and it was about the three music centers being Nashville, being country, LA being pop, and New York being Broadway. Well, I had never, ever heard really any Broadway shows. And it's like, man, these songs are amazing. I mean, just in terms of rhyme scheme and the way they construct those songs. So I got way into just the craft of what those folks were doing.
How to paint those pictures.
Yeah,
Eventually,
it's amazing. Right.
how that translates into country songs.
100%, 100%. But I would play songs for different publishers, including a woman named Leslie Schmidt. She was the song plugger at Millsap Galbraith Music. She says, bring me your 3 best songs. So I do that. We have a great meeting. Before we left, I said, hey, I know you probably see a lot of people one time. I would love to come back and play you more songs if you're cool with that.
Yeah.
She said, yeah, that'd be great. So I figured I would call her in a month or 6 weeks or whatever and try and get another appointment to bring her more songs. Later that week, she called me back.
Oh, wow.
And said, do you have any more songs? Oh, yeah, I got a lot more songs.
Yeah.
Bring me 5 more songs. Of those 5 songs, I only remember one. And it was a song that I had written with a guy, John Vesner. We had written this really country song called This Time Last Year. And Millsap recorded that song.
Oh,
he cut
wow.
that song. I'm in shows, working in shows at Opryland.
And you got a cut by
Roddy Millsap.
modern superstar of country music.
Yeah.
That's
While I'm clogging and imitating country stars at this theme park. I can remember it still like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And so they did. They cut it. It was on that album, the Heart and Soul album, I think it was. And so they signed me from that. And they knew which I didn't understand this then, but I knew now. They knew right then when they signed me, they knew I was no risk because I had already recouped
Right.
the $125 a week draw that I was going to get. And buddy, I was happy to get it. Somebody's going to pay me $125 a week to write songs. And it's like, yes. But that was my first major cut, and that's what got me my first deal.
Well, we're all grateful that you are a songwriter because your songs have touched so many people's lives. When you and Zach, you started getting some cuts together and you said Keith Whitley had recorded I'm Over You.
Right.
And this song has gone on to become a country music absolute standard. But when it was recorded, Keith Whitley wasn't the icon that he is today since he has passed away.
Right.
You know, when he recorded that song, what was that moment like for you guys? Did you know it was going to be a single on him? How hot was he at the moment? What did that cut mean to y'all at that time?
I had met Keith one time. You know, he cut I'm Over You with Garth Fundus.
Right.
He had those first few hits with a producer named Blake Mevis, who produced all that early George Strait.
Yeah.
I'd also written a song called Brotherly Love that Keith recorded
with Earl Thomas
Conley, with Blake Mevis, and then he changed producers. And so basically they just shelved that project.
So had Brotherly Love already come out?
It had not.
Okay.
But we knew that he had cut I'm Over You. And so I remember the day that he died, I had been writing at another office, at another publishing company down here on Music Row, and I got back to Millsaps at the end of the day, and they said, "Did you hear about Keith?"
This was May 1989.
That's right. That's right. As a songwriter who has a song that's been cut, knowing that artists always overcut, the first thing that I thought when they said, "Did you hear about Keith?" was he had decided to not put I'm Over You on the album. And then they said he died today.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, what? And then when we found out that he died of an alcohol overdose, of alcohol poisoning, and then the first line of the chorus of I'm Over You is, "You've heard I'm drinking more than I should." And again, as a songwriter, it's like, well, there's no way
they could possibly put this out.
They're going to put that song out.
Yeah.
There's no way they're going to release that. But thankfully they did, and it has become a signature.
Both Brotherly Love, which was a big hit, and I'm Over You, both of those came out after Keith Whitley had passed.
That's right. And so, you know, I really feel like I just feel like he was kind of like the modern day country music James Dean story, in that this guy was just, the trajectory of his career was just a rocket ship. And the music that we didn't get a chance to hear because of his passing, and I feel like we missed that. But after that, they went back through the RCA vault, and they looked at Brotherly Love. And so they had those vocals. The track that Blake cut, back then there was this synthesizer called the DX7.
Okay.
And it was just kind of the hot
sound of the moment,
sound of the day. And it was all over the track.
Yeah.
They recut that. They basically, Garth built another track around Keith and Earl's vocals.
Oh, wow.
And so that's what you heard. That's what became the number
Big
one
hit.
Was a new track that Garth built after, and probably maybe a year or two after it was on the Kentucky Bluebird album.
So you wrote for Millsap for how many years?
6 years.
6 years. Had several hits over there, other hits on Billy Dean,
Right.
hits on Ronnie Millsap. Where did your career go from there?
So when Zach and I were doing the duo thing, I ended up writing over at 1010 for Barry Coburn.
Because Barry was your artist
Barry
manager
was our manager. A lot of ducks have to line up for that star thing to happen, as you well know, as we know. And so basically, long story short, there were a couple things that happened that made me not want to be at 1010 any longer.
Yeah.
The other thing is, in the music business, there are moments you have to have difficult conversations that you don't want to have.
Amen. Yeah.
But it's way better to be uncomfortable for those few moments because this is a small town.
Yeah.
And you're going to be seeing people for years. There was a conversation that I had to have with Barry Coburn that I didn't want to have, but I had it. And so all of these years later, we're buddies now. I mean, I ran into him the other day. Every time we'll see each other, he'll mention a song that Zach and I wrote and how he's still pitching it and all that. And so I just feel like sometimes those conversations are hard to have, but it's better. A few minutes of conflict are better than years of not wanting to run into a person in a room.
Yeah.
And you will for years.
Without a doubt. Every songwriter's story is unique. And like Tim said, the important piece of his story is taking the risk to move to Nashville and follow his dream to become a songwriter. Without that one step to Nashville on his path, the world would have missed out on so many incredible songs that have become staples in country music. You know, what amazes me so much is that when you think about the biggest songs that are out there, that are just iconic songs that become the soundtrack to your life, so many times the story is just, oh, it was just another Tuesday. And it seems like when you wrote one of the biggest songs in the history of country music, Live Like You Were Dying, it was just another Tuesday. Will you tell us about kind of the creation? How did Live Like You Were Dying come to be?
Yeah. It literally was just like any other day. And we didn't have a clue. We didn't have a clue that we were going to write that song. I was writing with Craig.
But I want to say,
Wiseman.
like, this song went on to be, at that point, the longest running number one in country music history. You won a Grammy for the best country song. You won a CMA award for Song of the Year and for Single of the Year. This song won the ACM Song of the Year and Single of the Year. Just an absolute juggernaut of success. And all of the thousands of songs you have written, you just get up on another day to show up to the office one more time and Live Like You Were Dying happens.
This is a must-be-present-to-win business. You have to show up, and on days, even though I still love it, there are days it's like, man, I'm just not feeling it today. But just because I'm not feeling it that morning does not mean I'm going to cancel and I'm going to not show up. Because invariably I've found out that those days, for whatever reason, tend to be great days.
Yeah.
The days when I don't really feel like it. And so Craig and I had been writing for a while, and we had been really liking the songs that we had been writing, but for whatever reason, just nothing. And then this particular day, I'm just telling him a story that I'd heard the day before because Craig knew this guy as well. This guy he'd just gone in for a routine physical. This guy's healthy. He's young. He's healthy. And he hears back from his doctor a couple days later that his days are numbered and he's sick. And so the doctor's, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say. So this guy had always wanted to go skydiving. Well, he thinks he's dying, so he jumps out of a plane. And then he finds out that the lab had gotten his blood work mixed up with someone else's.
Oh, my goodness.
So you can imagine this roller coaster
of emotion.
You know, one day when you think you're dying, it's like, okay, well, I've always wanted to do this while I have time. I'm going to jump out of a plane. And then you find out, no, you're not dying. Yeah. You're fine. Well, this guy, because he wanted to keep that feeling, he wanted to hang on to that. You know, he wanted to make sure that he still, that for that short time when he thought he was dying and how precious those days were, he wanted to
live every day.
He wanted to live every day like that.
Yeah.
I'm telling Craig that story. That reminds him of a story he'd heard about this woman who had cancer. She wanted to go mountain climbing in the Rockies. So that's where the skydiving and Rocky Mountain climbing came from in the song. These two separate, independent stories. And we started coming up with the lines that had living and dying in them, thinking, well, that could be maybe somehow be the title of a song. And then out of the blue, Craig says, hey, man, how about Live Like You Were Dying?
Wow.
And I was like, dude.
We know what we're doing today.
Let's write that.
Yeah. But again, I think it's so wild that We're talking about one of the most iconic songs that defined an entire genre, and it began from just another day where you didn't really have an idea.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't telling Craig that story because I thought I wasn't even thinking about a song
Y'all
idea.
just having a friend conversation.
I'm just telling him because he knew the guy.
Yeah.
It's like, man, what a story.
And then it leads to this song just going on an absolute rocket ship. You had numerous hits before, but I like to say, like, unfortunately, all hits are not created equal. And for this song, what was it like going through just the success journey of this song?
Craig and I have had the opportunity to see firsthand the power of music and the power of a song. It is real. It is magical. It is a very cool thing to be a part of. And I know I can speak for Craig too. It's something we have not taken for granted over the past 21 years now.
Is there a certain story that sticks out of where a fan, a listener has come and ran into you somewhere, heard you sing this song and told you stories of how this song has touched their life?
Yes, absolutely. And so we have heard so many amazing, wonderful stories over the past, like I said, 21 years. But there's no doubt the one that has stuck with me the most was we heard from a woman. She said, there's that line in your song that says, I gave forgiveness that I'd been denying. She said, the first time I heard that line in your song, I had not spoken to my father for 15 years.
Wow.
She said, then one day I heard Live Like You Were Dying on the radio, and I heard that line. I gave forgiveness that I'd been denying. She said, I picked up the phone and I called my dad for the first time in 15 years, and we have a relationship now.
Wow. If that's not the power of music, I don't know what is.
Is strong.
Yeah. Y'all showed up to write songs one day with no special idea. It was just another day going to work. And now a complete stranger has a relationship with her father that she never would have had without that song. And imagine you being a father yourself, the agony, whatever their story is, but that he had to go through of being estranged from his daughter, and your song helped cure that for him.
It is amazing, and I've said it over and over in interviews. That day was just like any other day, and it's turned out to be like no other day.
And man, think about 20 years later, a song still having an impact like that for people hearing it the first time, speaking to their lives, of meeting them right where they are. What a gift that is. Wow.
Yeah, it's just been an incredible blessing. I mean, there's just so many cool stories. Like Kix Brooks has gotten to be a buddy over the years. And this had probably been maybe, I don't know, just a couple years ago. He said, hey man, did I ever tell you that story about the night Tim debuted Live Like You Were Dying at the ACMs in Vegas? I said, no, man. He said, that day, you know, they're all together. The artists are together that day. They're doing rehearsals and sound checks and all that. And he said, I noticed, man, that McGraw just seemed not his normal, cool, chill self. He just seemed like a little anxious. Yeah. To the point that finally I asked him, it's like, hey man, what's up with you today? You seem like you're not yourself. And he said, Tim told me, he said, man, I'm debuting what I think will be the song of my career tonight.
Wow. What a words from, quite possibly the greatest country artist of all time. Looking back on almost 5 decades of your career, what one moment would you choose to go back and relive? Is there one moment?
Well, I think I would have to say, to go back to that, what I was talking about, my sweetest moment in the music business was hearing Tim debut Live Like You Were Dying at the ACMs. That would be fun to experience that again. Yeah. And just to kind of soak that in one more time. And even I've had a handful of opportunities over the years to see Tim play that song. And one time was several years ago, the NFL draft was here. there were like, I don't know how many, 150,000 people or
On the streets of Nashville.
on the streets of Nashville. So I was there. Tim, that was a Friday night. Tim let it be known that he wanted to play. So my son Landon and Landon was, I don't know, 24 or something at the time. We're down there overlooking, we're in one of the rooftop venues. Tim starts singing Live Like You Were Dying. There are people lying down Broadway. He stops singing, and 150,000 people are singing Live Like You Were Dying.
Wow.
And I look over at Landon, and he's crying.
Oh,
My son
man.
is crying.
Yeah.
And he said, "You got to stop writing songs so good that make me cry." Now that I wouldn't mind reliving that again.
Amen.
That was fun
what a
too, because
moment.
as a dad, I'll always have that moment.
So you mentioned earlier, like when you got I'm Over You recorded on Keith Whitley, the excitement of that, knowing the song's recorded, but then all of a sudden he changed producers. The song wasn't going to be released, or in his case, he passed away, and eventually it found its way out. But over your years, as you have gotten a song recorded and you feel that high, and then all of a sudden there's a producer change, and then there's a low of, oh my gosh, what's happening to my song? How have you dealt with the ups and downs of songwriting? Because there's just so much that's out of your control.
Part of who I am is my glass is always half full. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't hard days, because life is hard, buddy.
Yeah.
Life is hard, man. And so there are going to be plenty of tough days. But in terms of dealing with ups and downs, and I've heard like new writers, it's like, hey, I got a Morgan Wallen hole today, but I'm not getting my hopes up. And I tell them, get your hopes up in this business. Anytime you can get your hopes up, get them up, because those days don't come along very often.
Yeah.
You know, so if the Morgan Wallen cut, if it doesn't happen, you can deal with that then. But anytime you have an opportunity to get your hopes up, do it.
Get your hope up.
Do that. Get your hopes up. Anytime you have an opportunity, I do.
Yeah. Because that could bring more excitement into the room that day, get your energy going in the right direction that day. And then that could help that day be the day that you write your Live Like You Were Dying.
Right. Get your hopes up anytime you have a chance, anytime you can. Don't say, I don't want to get my hopes up. Why would you not want to get your hopes up?
Evolving as a songwriter is key to a long career. Tim is an incredible example of how being open to writing with new artists and exploring ways to innovate your catalog can lead to career-changing moments. From a genre-defining interpolation with She Had Me at Heads Carolina for Cole Swindell, to taking a chance on a completely unknown new artist, Zach Top, Tim shares with us the way that he has continued to create hits across more than 4 decades. Man, something that has become very popular in country music that had already been popular in pop music and urban and hip hop music, and that is the idea of interpolations. And one of your big hits, Heads Carolina, Tails California on Jody Messina, became not just a hit, but a 6-week #1, became ACM Song of the Year, Single of the Year. It just became a massive hit for Cole Swindell called She Had Me at Heads Carolina. Now, it wasn't the first interpolation in country music, but it has ushered in what seems to be just a waterfall of interpolations. What did that mean to you to see one of your songs reimagined, but what it has meant for Jody Messina's career and for your career? And let's talk about that.
So it all goes back to, it all started with you, my publisher. And so it's what makes you, quite frankly, the best. I'm not just saying that because we're sitting here, because I remember us talking a ways before it ever happened, that you had this idea for this interpolation of Heads Carolina, where the singer goes into a bar and this girl is singing Heads Carolina karaoke. Because another thing, it's your thought that Heads Carolina, Tails California is the most performed female country karaoke song. Now, I know you don't have any facts or figures to back that up, but since you believe it, who am I to argue?
That's right.
If you believe it, I believe it.
People only know what you tell them.
That's right. And so you pitched the idea to Cole. Cole was like way receptive. He's always been a big Jody fan, a big 90s country fan. Then at one point, that summer, he was going to be out with Thomas Rhett.
He was on tour with Thomas Rhett.
And so they were thinking, well, maybe there's a way we could make this a duet. And so then they brought in...
Because they did write it together. The idea was this would be a duet with Cole Swindell and Thomas Rhett.
Yeah, and then they brought in Ashley Gorley and Jesse Frazier to work on it. And it's like, well, and because you were telling me, the step by step, everything was happening, because even when you mentioned that they were going to try and make it a duet, it's like, ooh, that'd be great. I don't know if I even told you this. I spent like an hour or two trying to figure out how could that work.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's like, man, I can't figure out a way to make it work as the way it should as a duet. And they came to that same conclusion.
Right.
And so they decided it was going to be Cole's song. And when I heard it, and that was the great thing was you were giving me all the information. And so it was like, well, don't get excited yet, but
right.
Don't get excited yet, but they wrote the song. Don't get excited yet, but here's the demo. It's like, and then I think it was one day, it's like, okay, you can get excited.
Then it became something really to be excited about. But as you heard it, to the feeling of bringing a 20-year-old song, or was it 25 years?
26 years
26
at that point,
years old at that point, not only just introducing that song to a new generation of people, but how it ignited a fire in Jody Messina's career. For you as a songwriter, is it a different feeling seeing one of your children reincarnated?
Yeah, it's just incredible. And I got to say, Mark and I wrote Heads Carolina, Tails California. We were just thrilled because, other than Live Like You Were Dying, Heads Carolina is the biggest song I've had. It's the second biggest song in my career. And so there's a radio station, it's playing right now somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, you want to okay, how's this going to go?
Yeah.
But knowing the very capable hands that it was in, I just never felt for a minute. It was exciting. It's like, what are they going to do with it? Yeah. What is this going to be? And so then, I remember from just hearing the demo, it's like, holy crap, this is amazing. I love this. And so then that went from the demo to the record, and Zach Crowell and Cole, then just the record that they made. And I have so much respect for those guys because they told me they knew for them trying to do an interpolation of, they took that serious.
Right.
That means the world to me.
Yeah.
That they did that.
Because they knew they were honoring what already was such a monumental song in the country music world. And then today, you have a huge hit that's an interpolation, but at the moment having just another brand new hit with Zach Top, and it doesn't seem to be just another hit. It seems to be a career-defining hit that's launching a true superstar right here and now. And you've been writing with Zach. How many years have y'all written, and how did that come about?
His producer, Carson Chamberlain, I've known Carson 30 plus years. Carson was Keith Whitley's steel guitar player and tour manager.
For Alan Jackson. Yeah.
No, before he went to work for Keith Whitley.
Yeah.
Keith passed. I think he worked for Clint Black for a short time, and then he went to work as a tour manager for Alan Jackson. But then also Carson, because Carson wanted to be a record producer, and Carson was producing demos that Zach Turner and I wrote.
Oh, wow.
He would produce our early demos. Carson probably, I need to talk to him about this. He
could have produced the demos that helped get Turner Nichols.
He may have produced the demo for I'm Over You.
Oh, wow.
So Carson, he calls 5 years ago. He says, hey man, I found a guy. If Carson calls me and says he's found a guy, I don't even have to hear him. If he's in, I'm in. And so it was this Zach Top kid, I guess maybe I'm 23 then, maybe 22.
Yeah.
And we start writing a bunch of songs and sitting in the room and hearing this guy play and sing. It's like, what in the world?
Yeah.
I mean, we saw then, it's like what the world is seeing now.
Well, he just announced he's got a brand new album coming out in August, and you're going to have 4 songs on that album. What a blessing.
Yes, it's quite the blessing.
Yeah.
And again, it's just showing up, writing the songs, do the work.
But
Do the
just
work,
talk
do the
about,
work, do the work.
Like relationships and how important they are throughout your career. That was a great story you just talked about, Carson, where y'all have known each other. He was literally producing demos for you in the late 80s, in the 90s, and now here you are 30 years later. You've written a multi-week #1 that streamed hundreds of millions of times together. What does that importance of relationships mean to you throughout your career?
It's just so relationships are so valuable and so important. And for new writers who are maybe you're out in somewhere in the country, maybe you're in Kansas or in Carolina or wherever, somewhere out in the country, and you're listening to this and you're thinking about moving to Nashville, or maybe you've been here for a little bit. You will meet people, and you're meeting people now that you will know 30 years from now. And you will kind of, because I feel like the way Nashville works is you kind of come up with your class.
Yeah.
When I was first signed to Millsap, I just wanted to write with Mike Reed. Well, Mike Reed is Mike Reed. And so he was busy writing with Troy Seals and every other
songwriters that were on their way to become legends.
Level.
Yeah.
And he was great to me. And we would have these great talks. And he's one of my songwriting heroes.
Yeah.
And so he called me this weekend asking me to send him a lyric to a song that we wrote that he was maybe going to play at a show in Montana.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just there's no substitute for relationships. And so make relationships and nurture and honor them. And you have to protect them, I think.
Yeah.
Nashville, I think, and I've heard you say it over and over, and it just could not be more true. Nashville is such a relationship town.
We're all here chasing the same dream. We're all here to help each other.
And we're all, and I think to a large degree, we all come from, you came here from Texas. I moved here from Virginia. We all came here from other parts of the country. And when you're back where you're from, you feel like nobody is like you.
Right. Amen.
But when you get here and it's like, holy crap, everybody is like you. There's this kindred spirit thing, because you knew you couldn't do what you wanted to do from Texas.
That's right.
And so we all, whether it's DePiro or Jeffrey Steele or Craig Wiseman or Lee Miller, we couldn't do it from where we were.
Yeah.
We had to get here. And so we all, like I said, to a large degree, we're all the same person.
Yeah. We just needed to find one another.
Yeah. And then when you write these songs together, or when you put writers together and they write these hit songs, and then you go get those songs recorded, there's what's better than that? Nothing.
Have you ever been in the room and one of your favorite co-writers has pitched you on what they believed was a great idea, but it just didn't turn out that day was going to be the day you wrote that song? And then later they went to write it with someone else and you kicked yourself. Do you have one of those stories?
So our buddy, Drew Baldridge, he wrote with us at this, he wrote for us at This Music for years. Man, he has broken through. Somebody's
Just
daughter.
Had a historic number one. She's somebody's daughter?
Somebody's daughter. I was in a room with Drew. He pitched that idea to me. And I told you this.
I don't think so.
I don't think I had either. He pitched me that idea. And, as you know, there was another artist that had the same title out.
Oh, yes. Tennille Towns.
Tennille Towns on
Sony
Sony
Records. Yeah.
And he pitched it to me, and it's like, man. So basically, I passed. And so I don't know what we wrote that day.
Yeah.
Then he ended up writing with Jimmy and Kamren James. So we were at the number one party a few months ago, everybody was mad. You were spoke. I was crying. Had tears in their eyes. So happy for Drew. And then I think it's maybe like a few weeks later we got together to write. And I said, "You remember pitching She's Somebody's Daughter to me?" He said, "Yep." I said, "I sure do."
Oh, that's funny.
And so, man, it just goes to show. But I think the reason I passed on that song was because I wasn't supposed to write it. He was supposed to write that song with Jimmy Erie and Kamren James. They were meant to write that song. But I had the chance, and I said, nah.
That's great. Well, our podcast is called Thank A Songwriter because the idea is anyone that works in the music business, every position in the music business only exists because of the hard work put forth by a songwriter. And we believe that greatness deserves gratitude. And so we did have a letter that was sent in of gratitude for you, and we wanted to read that to you today. And it says, "Dear Tim, thank you for writing Live Like You Were Dying. A few years ago, when my dad was diagnosed with a serious illness, your song came on and spoke right to us about embracing every moment and truly living. One evening, sitting on the porch, watching the sunset, my dad shared all the things he'd always wanted to do. Fishing trips, road trips, even learning the guitar. That song became the soundtrack to that moment and inspired us to start making a list of small adventures, meaningful conversations, laughter over dinners, all things we might have missed if it wasn't for this song. Thank you for creating something that doesn't just sound beautiful, but changes how our lives were lived. Your words have touched me, my family, and I'm sure countless others in ways that are hard to put into words. With deepest gratitude, Ashley." Man, Tim, hearing that, like, what does that mean to you?
It's just, I make a living. I've been fortunate enough for nearly 40 years to make a living with words. But then when you hear something like that, then words are kind of difficult to come by, And so it's just, again, I think it just speaks to music is powerful. But it's also, music is just this amazing tool, and it's very versatile. It's kind of like those knives with all the blades on.
Yeah,
A song, knife. Music, yeah. You can use it for, just for fun and partying. You can use it you can play a song, but it's just slow dance with your wife or your girlfriend. And it has all of these uses. And then it's a tool that people can use in their life every day to help them get through a tough spot.
Yeah.
To give them a moment of encouragement, or to, like with Live Like You Were Dying, to remind people it's like, I need to appreciate today while I have it, because this is the only day that I know for sure that I have.
That's right. Well, we greatly appreciate what you do because songs have the power to change the world, and your songs, time after time, have changed the world to be a better place. So thank you for being the songwriter that you are.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.